tujue ya kwamba tutaweka vidhibiti gani.
There are people who are even hiding in established churches, Madam Speaker. We know of people who are calling themselves bishop, who are stealing land out of people, Madam Speaker, stealing money. Kiambu has been a culprit, has been a victim of people calling themselves bishop and running away with a lot of money, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'd like to end it, Madam Speaker, but I wish you would have preserved my time because the interruption was unfair and rude. Madam Speaker, I would want to say that the church will have to step up. The Swahili say, Nazibovu.
Now, from the parliament buildings to the pursuit of justice in yet another bizarre turn of events in Kajiado County, where a woman who is suspected of murdering her child in cold blood and eating her internal organs in Kitengela, Kajiado County, will be held in custody at the Kitengela police station for a period of 10 days to allow police officers to conduct investigations. The suspect, identified as Olivia Naserian, was arraigned at the Kajiado Law Courts earlier today, where the police requested to be given 13 more days to conduct and complete their investigations over the gruesome murder. Chichi Josephine reports.
Tonight, police are still grappling with trying to understand what led to these heinous acts that shocked the nation.
Stop! Stop!
This is despite a spirited pleas from her neighbors outside her house who had responded to screams. It is reported that she locked herself and her daughter inside the house at the time of the incident. The suspect would go unconscious and woke up at Kitengela Hospital on Monday morning, where she was rushed, and hours later, clad in a grey jumper, dark trouser and a face mask, Naserian appeared before Kajiado Principal Magistrate Jane Kamau to face possible murder charges.
Your Honor, the suspect was arrested on 23rd of April 2023, being a suspect of murder.
Kitengela detectives had applied to be allowed to hold the suspect for 14 days as they finalized investigation into the incident that caused heated debate both off and online.
Your Honor, in respect of that matter, we request this Honorable Court to give us an order to remand the suspect at the Kitengela Police Station for 13 days to enable us finalize our investigation.
Detectives working on the case say they will be piecing together what transpired moments before the heinous crime, including a phone analysis on who she spoke to before the incident. The case will now continue on May 8th. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
May justice be served promptly. Meanwhile, the push and pull between the government and millers over maize imports is seen as the biggest reason why cheaper maize flour is not available in your local shop. A spot check in many retail outlets revealed that most brands still cost upward of 200 shillings. This as the government read the riot act to millers, whom it believes are behind Kenyans' woes. Gilbert Nalwa reports.
It is still not clear until when will Kenyans have the cheaper and affordable unga in the shops, as many retail shops are yet to stock the cheap unga. A spot check in the Quickmart and Naivas supermarkets within the Nairobi CBD reveals that prices are still too high, some as high as above 200 shillings. In the Quickmart shops, Jogo is retailing at 251 shillings, Pembe at 208 shillings, while Soko and Ugali Afya current prices are 200 and 263 shillings respectively. Taifa is retailing at 198 shillings in the Naivas supermarket, while Soko and Dollar in the same supermarket going for 188 and 199 shillings respectively. This prompted a meeting between Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi and maize millers in the country, Linturi taking it hard on millers who are yet to comply with the government directive to import duty-free maize so as to help bring down the prices of unga.
Government in its wisdom decided to forego duty.
According to the Cabinet Secretary, only 3 major miller companies have complied with the directives and have managed to bring down the cost of their unga, while majority have remained adamant.
There are few friendly millers who are concerned and who are supporting government, and they are taking the maize and they have brought down the cost of that unga.
The government granted millers a grain importers duty waiver of 1.4 metric tons of maize and 1.1 metric tons of rice in December 2022 to lower maize flour and rice prices.
The maximum I can wait is 7 days. And I am only waiting for 7 days to furnish me with documentary evidence as a company that you have sourced your goods.
The CS noted the underperformance by the millers and grain importers in the importation of maize and rice, since less than 10% of the commodities have been imported after they were granted import duty waiver by the government in December 2022.
The intelligence that I have is that some of you took permits to go and hawk and sell in town for some money. Yeah? And that's why probably I'm in this kind of a situation. So, because you really did not have that muscle. So I am telling you that for purposes of moving us forward, and you are holding that document, and you realize you've had 4 months, you've not been able to do something, please surrender.
So far, only 90,621 metric tons of maize and 95,381 metric tons of rice have arrived in the country, according to the official data from the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development. Linturi warned unscrupulous millers and traders who are alleged to have imported maize and rice under the tax waiver quota and attempted to re-export the same grains to the neighboring countries. Gilbert Nalwa, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Gilbert Nalwa, for that report. Now, from the cost of unga to the possible resurgence of malaria, the new mosquito variant poses a huge threat to urban and peri-urban dwellers. This is according to the Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, that says a collaborative effort is required in order to curb the effects of Anopheles stephensi that threatens to undo the gains made in malaria treatment and management in the country. Take a look.
As Kenya works round the clock to sustain its war against malaria, a new threat is emerging, one that could pose a new headache, mostly in urban areas, which have seen little intervention in terms of limiting malaria spread due to its low risk levels. Scientists say the discovery of the Anopheles stephensi mosquito species has the potential of clawing back the gains made, as it is a mosquito species that is capable of transmitting both Plasmodium falciparum and Plasmodium vivax malaria parasites, making it resistant to the current vector control measures.
It's found in areas where the current control tools do not work, because we use a lot of insecticide-treated nets. We use a lot of indoor residual spraying of the houses with the insecticide. We also use drugs and the various diagnostics. However, you find the vector control tools that we have in place won't work for this mosquito.
Experts say what makes the new species deadlier is the fact that it thrives in the urban setting and is mostly active during the day, while it breeds in the same conditions as the other species.
It's known as a container breeder. So it breeds in areas where these interventions do not work. Meaning then, because it's very efficient in transmitting the disease, it will now bring the disease from the endemic areas to the cities where we don't have the disease. And then, considering cities, we have many people living there, then many people will start getting the disease.
Dr. Damaris Matoke, the head biotechnology research program at KEMRI, says the new mosquito species is originally native to parts of South Asia and the Arabian Peninsula, particular, Anopheles stephensi has been detected over the last decade in 5 countries in the African continent.
The species has been known to transmit the disease in Asian countries, but recently it was around last year it was reported in the horns of Africa, Djibouti, Ethiopia and others. But also December this year we reported the mosquito in Kenya, in Marsabit County, and this the species is known to transmit urban malaria, also peri-urban, meaning then it will take us back to where we were in the years, so we should be concerned about it.
Children of school-going age are now at higher risk of contracting the disease, which is one of the leading causes of child mortality. According to recent data, it kills about 500,000 children every year. That translates to over 1,300 dead children per day. Even though the mosquitoes are yet to be reported in any of Kenya's cities, in Nairobi County, the risk areas include Kibra, Kawangware, Pipeline and Embakasi areas.
We have not yet reported it in Nairobi, Eldoret, in other cities, even Mombasa yet. However, it's likely that it will be here sooner than later. Therefore, Cambridge is working closely with the Ministry of Health in surveillance. Our lab actually participates in surveillance, looking where the vector is and whether it's infected, and also trying to roll out control measures. But also we are trying to see if we are seeing more cases of malaria in areas where it is, that these patients are treated and managed, and also they working with the various partners to control the mosquito.
Dr. Damari's father says there's need for a collaborative effort to be undertaken in order to curb the effects of the new strain, including actively involving the community in the control measures.
The concern should be more of what can we do? Are the communities aware? Is the normal common mwananchi aware about the strain? And once they are aware, can they, because this one will need a collaborative engagement, not only from the research point of view or the implementer point of view, but the community needs to be actively involved, especially in destroying or removing the breeding places.
In a bid to stop the new threat, the WHO is recommending a 5-pronged approach, which includes increasing collaboration, strengthening surveillance, improving information exchange, developing guidance and prioritizing research. Zainab Mohammed, TV47.
And on the same breath, Kenya has joined the world in marking World Malaria Day. As stakeholders in the health sector show optimism following the reduction in malaria cases in the country. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, as some counties walk with their heads held high for walking in the right path towards malaria elimination, some counties like Vihiga have nothing to smile about as they continue to report an increase in malaria cases.
Today, the 12th of April 2023, all roads led to Ekerenyo grounds in Nyamira County, where public health officials and organizations came together to commemorate the 16th World Malaria Day celebrations themed Time to Deliver Zero Malaria, with investment, innovation and implementation highlighted as the 3 key pillars in the fight against malaria.
By bringing together partners from across the private, media and creative sectors, as well as prominent champions and communities fighting malaria every day, we know that we're changing political and public perceptions that not only is zero malaria possible, but that Kenya can be at the forefront of the race to zero.
The African continent is still bearing the greatest brunt of malaria, accounting for 95% of malaria cases and deaths. In 2021 alone, over 475,000 children under the age of 5 died of malaria. Kenya currently has a 6% malaria prevalence, down from the previous 8% reported in 2015. There are 3.5 million clinical cases of malaria reported in various health facilities in the country every year, and 10,700 deaths are reported in the same period.
Out of 40 million pregnancies, 13.3 million, representing 32%, were exposed to malaria infection during pregnancy, which increases the risk of low birth weight. East and Southern Africa have the highest prevalence of exposure to malaria during pregnancy at 41%.
Nyamira County has also reported a significant decline in malaria cases from 8.9% to 1%, with community health providers being cited as the main contributors to the reduction in malaria cases by reducing the burden by 40%, thereby reducing the cost of malaria diagnosis and treatment at the household level.
Nilikuwa naongea na Gavana Nyaribo, ameniambia kwamba ako na 1,400 community health promoters. Najua mmewazoea kuwaita community health workers or volunteers. Now we have called them community health promoters. We want to train them, and in the next 1 month, His Excellency the President is going to launch. We are going to kit all the community health promoters.
And as Nyamira County boasts of having reported a decline in malaria prevalence, the situation is not the same in Vihiga County, whose prevalence is at 22%.
Ukiangalia watu 1,000, utakuta kwamba 266 ama watu 266 watipatikana wakiwa na malaria. So tunaona kwamba malaria burden in Vihiga bado iko juu.
2020, the mortality rate increased to 15.1 per 100,000 population before decreasing slightly to 14.8 per 100,000 population in 2021.
The emergence of invasive malaria species dubbed Anopheles defensi, a reduction in malaria funding by 10%, and threats of resistance of malaria parasite and mosquitoes to insecticides have been cited as the main setbacks in malaria control and prevention in the country. The government is now planning to distribute more nets to households, especially to the 8 counties in the lake endemic region. In 2024, the government targets to distribute 18.3 million nets.
Na mwezi wa pili tuliweza kuweka dawa kwa kizungu inaitwa biolarvicide kwa hivi vidimbwi, na tuliweza kufikia vidimbwi 36, na tuliweka kabla msimu wa mvua, ili wakati msimu mvua ukianza na umbu zikizaana zitaweza kuwawa na hiyo dawa ambayo tuliweka kwa hivyo vidimbwi.
Unahakikisha kwamba mazingira unayoishi ndani yako safi. Kama kuna vichaka karibu, unafyeka hizo vichaka.
The good news is that 82% of cases and 95% of deaths were averted in the WHO African region. Thank you.
The World Malaria Day celebrations in Nyamira County were graced by Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu, his health counterpart Susan Nahumicha, stakeholders from the public and private health sector, and headed by the leadership of the Nyamira County government and residents from Nyamira County. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth Atieno, for that report. Now let's get back to the horrific Shakahola mass graves discoveries, where human rights groups now fear that the ongoing operation in Shakahola is not moving with the speed that is required. It will tamper with evidence. They want the government to put more boots on the ground as the bodies now choke up the Kilifi and Malindi mortuaries, which can hold a total of only 60 bodies. Paul Kirobi reports.
As the digging for more bodies in the 800-acre piece of land in Shakahola that has now been declared an active scene of crime, worry lingers over the slow pace of the exercise, which is now rolling into a week. With an average of more than 10 bodies being exhumed per day, human rights bodies are now afraid that the current state of affairs in as far as the storage of bodies is concerned could lead to tampering with evidence.
That area now is a scene of crime, is out of bounds for everybody except security forces. I have gazetted that 800 acres as a disturbed area in accordance with the Public Order Act.
The situation could also be complicated by the fact that the post-mortem exercise is set to begin, which could further slow down the exhumation process, considering the fact that the court has granted orders for the detectives to dig the whole 800 acres of land.
Hawatamaliza. Hizi tumeona kuna mass grave nyingi sana. Kwa hivyo naomba waziri kupitia wizara yake pamoja na national government walete helicopters, walete Kenya WS walete operation zote ili kazi iwe haraka, maana kuna wengine wanapatikana kama ni wazima.
They now want the government to beef up the team on the ground as they race against time. The crisis is also being felt at the morgues in the area. At the moment, the Malindi Hospital mortuary can only accommodate 12 bodies, with the Kilifi Hospital mortuary accommodating 48 bodies.
Our capacity haiwezi. Bwana CS, tunaomba tuweze kupata mashirika wale ambao wana hizi fridges ama mahali kwa kustiri hii mili. Tumeweza kusaidiwa zengine na Red Cross, lakini tungeomba kwa sababu serikali ni kubwa na muna goodwill, tuweze kupata sehemu ambazo hii miili inapotolewa kule iweze kuhifadhiwa.
By today afternoon, the Kenya Red Cross Society recorded 213 persons who are missing. Among them, 112 who are children below 18 years who are suspected to be followers of controversial Malindi Pastor Paul Mackenzie. Kenya Red Cross Society Coast Regional Coordinator Hassan Musa said they are still receiving more relatives of family members who are looking for their loved ones.
Hasa kwa wakati huu, tangu ianze hii ishu ya Mackenzie mpaka saa hii sijampata mtoto wangu, simpati kwa simu, kimpigia simpati. Mtoto wangu ni yeye na watoto wake watatu. Mtoto wangu anaitwa Lorin Ngumbao, yuko kule na bwanake.
The Malindi Hospital mortuary is also overwhelmed with the bodies which are currently more than 90, including the 73 that were brought from Shakahola and those of people who died at the hospital. Paul Kirobi, TV47.
Now, on that note, we are due a short break, but don't go too far. We'll be right back with more news. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, tonight, Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalition's bipartisan talks hung in the balance after the two sides failed to reach a consensus on the composition of the crucial body meant to end the country's political crisis. The inclusion of MPs Adan Keynan of Jubilee and David Kosing of the Kenya Union Party proved to be a Herculean task, forcing the co-chairs of the bipartisan team to adjourn the sitting to go and meet President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga on the way forward. Apollo Kamau reports.
Another week, another stalemate. Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalitions left the dialogue table without a deal on the inclusion of Elders MP Adan Keynan of the Jubilee Party and Kenya Union Party's South Pokot MP David Kosing, with the two sides holding separate press conferences, with Azimio saying the talks have been suspended, but their Kenya Kwanza counterparts playing safe that the talks have only been adjourned.
We've hit a stalemate and we've suspended these talks until such time as there might be consensus along the lines reached or the position changes.
As we take an adjournment today, it is open to Honorable Otiende Amolo, the co-chair of the Azimio coalition, and myself to meet His Excellency the President, William Samoei Ruto, as an appointing authority, and also meet the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, as a co-principal and appointing authority.
Once again, just like last week, the bipartisan team retreated to the two leaders, Azimio leader Raila Odinga and President William Ruto, on the way forward. This time, the co-chairs to have a sit-down with the two leaders, where they will present the two leaders with three options. 1, to remove the two MPs from the bipartisan team. 2, the two MPs to resign, or they be retained in the team. A win for the two sides.
So that we can give them a report, and once this is done, including if they opt to exercise the options we have given, we can actually report to the country the progress we have made by this Friday.
The sticky issue of Kosing and Keynan representing the opposing sides, but claimed by the two sides, may have been settled in part by the Registrar of Political Parties, Andy Rito, in a letter addressed to Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, that there is no coalition agreement between Kenya Kwanza and the Kenya Union Party, meaning Kosing should represent the Azimio team in the talks.
On paper, the position stated by Azimio may be correct, even with the Registrar of Political Parties and everywhere else. However, as a matter of fact, that may not be the case, because we all know what has happened to Jubilee as far as Azimio is concerned.
We have confirmed from the Registrar of Political Parties that the position so far is that Jubilee still remains in Azimio. They have not exercised their rights under the coalition agreement to withdraw. And as such, there's no way one member of Jubilee who is part of Azimio can be part of the membership of the opposite team.
With the talks facing an imminent collapse if no solution is found by Friday, when the team will again report on progress made, Azimio has now dished out the mass action card, slated for the 2nd of May, but their Kenya Kwanza counterparts want them to suspend the demos until the white smoke billows.
The right to protest is in the Constitution, and you cannot be accused of bad faith when you exercise Article 37 rights.
Azimio should actually not carry on these demonstrations until the outcome of the talks is laid on the table.
Lawyer Paul Mwangi was appointed by Azimio to the bipartisan team secretariat, pending the nomination of his counterpart by Kenya Kwanza. Another week, another stalemate. The bark to save the talks now stops at the principals in yet another make or break moment. Apol Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Meanwhile, over 2,000 families are at risk after devastating floods set records across Mandera County following 12 hours of heavy rainfall. Some 100,000 families are also displaced in Mandera East, Mandera North and Mandera West. As our northeastern correspondent Hashim Jimal reports, displaced residents are now calling for urgent intervention.
As the rainy season continues in various parts of the country, the heavy downpour is seemingly becoming torrents of pain for a section of residents in Mandera, 200 of whom have been displaced as the rain caused floods, which submerged their houses and uprooted trees. Children are seen playing inside the water, oblivious of the looming threat of being washed away, let alone the health hazard that comes with the flooding.
Ile kitu ambayo imesababisha hii maji kufurika ama kusababisha uharibifu kama huo ni kwa sababu njia yote ya maji imefungwa. Njia yote ya maji ambayo ilikuwa inaelekeza maji yote kwa mto imefungwa. Na kwa hivyo tunataka kwa haraka serikali ya county pamoja na ile ya national waje.
Displaced residents are calling for urgent intervention for evacuation onto higher grounds. Mandera Governor Mohamed Aren Khalif, while assessing the impact of floods, urged them to be aware of their kids, as most of them are seen around flooding areas. Governor Khalif added the county will immediately commence relief intervention to most affected families.
Nataka niwaeleze wazazi waangalie hali ya watoto yao. Naona watoto wanacheza na maji. Kila rainy season kama hii tunapoteza watoto wetu. I appeal to all our partners who have been with us for a long time to also stand with us at this difficult time.
Mandera County Commissioner Amos Mariba told the residents to move to higher grounds so as not to be affected by the floods.
Tutaomba kwamba wananchi pia washirikiane nasi wakati ambapo wataambiwa wahamie kwa nyanda za juu na waone kwamba hawahadharishi maisha yao, kwamba wanafuatilia hivyo.
Kenya Red Cross has also embarked on sensitization among the residents for them to move to safer areas. Hashim Jimal reporting for TV47, Mandera County.
Now from Mother Nature's calamity to the war in Sudan, where Kenya has joined other countries globally in the race to evacuate its citizens from Sudan. This is after the first batch of 39 people landed Monday night aboard a military plane. According to Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale, 900 people have been mapped out and that there are elaborate plans to evacuate more people.
A few minutes to 10 p.m. Monday, the first batch of evacuees consisting of 19 Kenyan students alongside 19 Somali nationals and a Saudi Arabia national touched down in the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport aboard a Kenya Air Force aircraft. Muthoni Njogi explains that she had been in Khartoum for 2 weeks, and since the tension broke out in major parts of the country, there was electricity blackouts as well as lack of food and water.
So most of the time we were sleeping, as in lying down on the floor, just praying and keeping positive. And I strongly had the feeling that I had to keep positive, very focused, and above all, to take any risk to get me out of that country.
At the same time, Njogi tells us that she took the opportunity of the proposed 72-hour ceasefire to make her way to the South Sudan border, despite the billowing of smoke and loud explosions around her.
At a certain point, I was carried by a donkey because it was late and there were no vehicles. And so the Southern Sudan policemen, or rather the army, they escorted me to the immigration, and then they took me with their vehicles to a safer place where I spent the night, and in the morning they escorted us to the airport.
This even as Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale has noted that there are active multi-agency evacuation programs which are ongoing and that 900 Kenyans have been mapped out so far.
Kenya Defense Forces are assessing and the Air Force are assessing the situation, and we are ready to pick anytime as many trips as possible, and we will share with you every time we have done that kind of an engagement.
So far, the death toll has risen to at least 427, with those injured being over 3,000 people. This comes amid an ongoing external pressure for both General Mohamed Dagalo of the Rapid Support Forces as well as General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan of the Sudan Armed Forces to cease fire. Stanley Nyiringita, TV47.
Now, the Council of Governors has maintained its stand on shutting down of operations in counties if the national government will not release money to counties. Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga says if the 14 days notice given to national government to disburse 94 billion shillings to counties will not be met, they'll have no option but to release their employees. His Tharaka Nithi counterpart Muthomi Njuki revealed that counties are on the verge of grinding into a halt and that the National Treasury should hasten in releasing money to the devolved units. They were speaking in Machakos County during the Agriculture Committee meeting to discuss policy and legislative reforms in agriculture and livestock sector.
We would also want to reiterate on what the Council of Governors deliberated yesterday. We had a full council meeting, and in that meeting we realized that the counties are owed quite a lot of money by the National Treasury, who we continue to fault for not being a very fair arbiter. We made a statement and gave a 14-day notice, which I think by the end of today will be 13, in which time if we will not have received all the disbursements that are due to counties are going to grind to a halt, and we did agree that we shall now close down the counties and release our employees to go and do other things, because it is really the highest level of it's travesty of justice to deny our employees 3 months, 4 months salaries just because no money has been released to the counties. As we speak, we are owed in excess of 94.4 billion Kenya shillings that should go to the counties, and we would want to urge the National Treasury, just as our chair said yesterday and various other governors, we want to reiterate on this matter and say this is not a matter we want to negotiate. It is a matter that is constitutional. We are meant to get the money on the 15th of every month, and therefore we demand that the 94.4 billion be released immediately. Otherwise, we still want to reiterate that we shall close down counties if within the next 13 days we do not receive our January, February, March and April allocations. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, has opposed the proposed 3% housing fund levy. The union says teachers are already overtaxed and warns of unspecified action if the government goes ahead with the plan. KUPPET says they should not bear the brunt for the government being broke.
I think from this weekend we are calling the National Governing Council to weigh on this, because the situation is grave. Teachers are crying up there, and we cannot just sit down and wait for actions to take place, because we must stop this very early. Not unless you look at it and see how terrible it is in terms of reductions. For example, there is NHIF, 3%. PSS, that is public superannuation, is 7.5%. The housing now, which is coming, is 3%. Pay as you earn is 30%. 30% of your salary, and even allowances are taxed. So it's a close amount of money. VAT is 16%. So all these, yes, there is also WCPS, which teachers pay. So you can't imagine how.
That's stopped after the PSS.
Well, WCPS. Oh, sorry, it is stopped. Sorry, this one is stopped. Yeah, it is stopped.
Now it's time to count the shilling and shift focus to matters business. And in the business news, the Trade Investment Cabinet Secretary has led a high-level intercontinental meeting at the United States between government officials of the two governments. Some of the issues that were brought to books include economic prosperity, regional and multilateral issues, and long-term trade relation. The trade CS confirmed to investors that the government was on the implementation window of policy changes agreed at third ACHAM meeting held in the country. The meeting goes in line with the government target to raise imports from the current 10% to 30% and increase the annual investment from $500 million to $10 billion. The policy issues agreed are set to be implemented in 8 weeks. The third round of the investment talks is expected in July.
What we are doing is we are providing an environment that is conducive for investment, starting with the strategic trade and investment partnership that we are discussing, government of Kenya and the government of the United States, to ensure that your investments are safe and that we really provide an environment that is good for your business. So that Meg Whitman has talked about in terms of the business environment, the regulatory environment. We've given ourselves up to only 6 weeks to, pass the legislation that President Ruto announced at the sidelines of AmCham that are going to ensure that we provide an environment that's really good for your business.
Kenya is the most stable democracy in East Africa. Kenya is the gateway to the East African market of almost 500 million consumers. And Kenya has the Silicon Savannah with super smart engineers. Kenya has a young, educated, English-speaking workforce. And Kenya, as I said, generates over 90% of its energy from renewable sources. And Kenya's largest export market is the United States.
And still on the bilateral ties, Kenya will host the third edition of the Africa Summit. This after the Kenya bid to host the event was approved by Forbes' team. In the events that saw Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua attending in Botswana, 30 top entrepreneurs were recognized, including Kenyan Charlotte Magai, who was awarded for Safe Cooking Advocate. Magai is also the founder and CEO of Mukuru Clean Stoves. Now speaking during the event, Deputy President Gachagua called on the youth to utilize and embrace government 100,000 kilometers digital superhighway investment that is set to spur innovation. In addition, the second-in-command held talks with members of Sauti Sol Band on how to save the boy child from illicit brew and substance abuse.
See an opportunity for our young people that if they are focused, they decide what they want to do, they become go-getters. With a government like ours that is willing to allow them latitude into the business space, they have every opportunity to make it to the very top. We have also agreed that the young people through the Hustlers Fund are given an opportunity to be given credit to compete in doing business with the government. As a result, we have made a conscious decision to reserve 30% of all public procurement for the youth, women, and people with disability. Is to encourage the tech space to take center stage in our investment.